How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Heyday. Feeling stressed? Take a moment for yourself with Heyday. Stroll through rows of golden wheat, tend to cute barnyard animals, and discover the joys of a digital farm retreat. You don't have to hop in a car or catch a plane. Escape to the farm at the tap of a finger. With Heyday, you're not just tending to a farm, you're tending to yourself. Heyday. Search Heyday, that's Hay space DAY, in your favorite app store. Heyday is a free-to-play mobile game and offers optional in-app purchases and random rewards.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Wonder-working power in the precious.
Incredible as they seem, are not the results of mass hysteria.
You may wish to adjust the dial. You're currently tuned into
the wrong station. A red moon was hanging in the sky when the acrobat stopped to build a small fire for his supper. There was plenty of dry kindling this time of year, and the low blaze picked up quickly, reddening his face from below as he unwrapped some pieces of meat and spitted them over the flame. He was a man past his prime. There was gray in his stubble, and a stiffness about his shoulders from too many falls, and sometimes a dullness came over him that he feared was from a bad landing where he'd struck his head. But most of the time, he could still remember how to be sharp. And tonight, on the night of the red moon, he was sharp enough to feel something watching him from the blackness underneath the trees. He prepared his meal quietly, trying to hide all fear, and when the smell of crackling beef swelled up from the fire, making his own mouth water, he spoke to whatever lurked around the edges of his clearing. "You want something to eat?" He could feel the weight of its slow footsteps through the hard earth. The corner of his eye caught a glimpse of reddish eyeshine and heavy shoulders. He thought it might be something like a dog. "Here." He tossed a cut of meat, underhanded. White jaws lunged out, and then were gone. A moment later, red eyes blinked open in the darkness across the clearing. Speedy, eh?" He worked another piece of meat loose from its spit, almost scorching his fingers, and then tossed it across the clearing. Jaws crunched shut, then meat and teeth and animal were gone. The acrobat was left alone. He shrugged, ate what remained, and scattered the fire, stamping its embers with his boot while he wiped his fingers on the greasy red-black hide of his left sleeve. The red moonlight rained down. He made his way onward. Through a gap in the black trees, he could see a black tower silhouetted in the reddish sky. That was where he was headed. The acrobat walked lightly. He was a solid man, but not big. His footsteps didn't make much sound. Amidst the quiet of the woods, something nearby was rushing through the foliage. That dog, he thought, waiting, running ahead, watching, reappearing on the other side, and watching again. Maybe it was aggressive behavior, but it felt more like curiosity to him. So he opened himself to that curiosity. He walked wide-legged, relaxed, letting his hands swing free. No threat, no sign of wariness. He hummed softly all the way to the tower's shadow. That tower, it rose from black trees to pierce the moon's red belly. At its foot, an old mine shaft fell away into the earth. Ores of dull gray crystal had burnt red in some ancient fire. Only a few charcoal scraps remained of the above-ground works. The tower's door was made from some dull metal veined with red, and when he held his ear close to it, the red veins hummed and gave away the metal smell of lightning. He decided not to touch that door, and when he heard something rasp slowly across its other side, he stepped away, knowing he'd chosen right. Instead, he wandered a slow orbit round the tower's base. Black stones crusted here and there with red, or sometimes sanded dusty smooth, until he was standing between the tower wall and the mineshaft pit. He glanced down into the void. Moonlight bled away, sparkling here and there from red crystal. For someone whose whole life had been heights, the view made him queasy. He knew what it meant to fall. So he glanced up instead, and there, against the black sky, he spied a window whose iron bars were rusted through from use. It was high, but not so high for somebody like him. He set broad, square fingertips into places where the mortar had crumbled, and then, with the ease you or I might feel walking up a flight of stairs, he began to pull his body up the wall. That great black dog watched him climb from across the pit. Even in the moonlight, its fur seemed like an absence. Only its eyes reflected in the reddish glow. Halfway up, the acrobat missed his grip and almost fell, hung wild for a moment over the open pit. He almost panicked, had to shut his eyes against the spinning woods. But his anchored hand was steady in the mortar, and after a moment he was able to reach again, cement his hold, and clamber to the windowsill. He was out of breath by the time he climbed inside and landed on the dusty floor. That breath didn't come back as quickly as it used to. When he picked himself up, he found himself in what might have been a parlor once. The curtain scraps were rotten velvet, maybe, and likewise the rat's nest couches. There were shelves of moldy pulp which had once been paper, and a table whose varnish peeled like sinner's skin. Through the sagging door he caught sight of a workbench, and wandered through into a gallery of rusted tools. A small copper bale was greening in the corner, and he took it. Copper wire was money any place. When he came back into the parlor, there was a scratching on the stair below. It sounded like what he'd heard behind the red-veined door. "Hello?" Someone was swaying up from the gloom downstairs. They didn't answer when he called, and as he stepped back away from the landing, he felt the sweat come cold at his back. Whoever, whatever they were, they moved like an old man who'd lost his stick. A spurt of pity mingled with his fear. Easy now. But it came through the stairwell's arch and lurched toward him like a filing toward a magnet. It had once been a man, but now was shrunken, worn to peeling leather on the brownish bones. Its smile was painful in its yellow silence. Its hand was fused around the rusty jaggeds of a knife. Easy. He spoke the way he'd spoken to his senile father, but, like the old man, the brownish bones were well past understanding. It jerked toward him with the knife shard angled for his belly. He caught the wrist with both hands, but when he tried to strip the weapon from its grip, the hand came with it. He fell back with a low noise of horror, dropping the grisly object. But still the withered face swam toward him, hooked hand and splintered stump reaching for his neck. He slipped away, and as it came after him, he brought one of those bookshelves down on top. The bones went under with a crash. Then there was a moment's silence as he stood back, trying to slow the kicking of his heart. His old man had died in a similar way, crushed, confused. There was a sort of rhyme to it. But unlike his father, the brown bones kept smiling, kept reaching, kept trying to hurt him from underneath the weight of wood and pulp. But the leathery muscle was too feeble to free itself from the weight. So the acrobat turned for the stairs and fled higher, trying not to hear its piteous scratchings fade behind him. He caught his breath at the next landing, where moonlight flushed an empty wreckage of bird droppings, feathers, and bits of rusted iron from the crumbling spiral stair. He was well above the treetops now. From somewhere up above, the sound of weeping echoed weirdly down the curving steps. He put his back to the wall and sank, running rough palms down his face. Why was he here? He wished he wasn't. Wished he hadn't taken payment. Wished it wasn't far too late to walk away. Then claws on the stone floor startled him, and he snapped his eyes open, one hand jumping instinctively to his chest. But it was only that dog again, silhouetted black in red moonlight, with the void of a shattered window. Black pine serrated the world behind. There was a brown leg bone in between the white jaws now, and the acrobat thought it might have come from downstairs. The bone was cracked anyway. The iridescent magic drooled down. Oh, how'd you get in? The dog didn't answer. Got something else to eat, did you? The dog opened its jaws, letting the femur bounce down into rust flakes and guano. Then the animal bent its head and began to snuffle round the wreckage of the floor. He watched, uncertain he wanted to turn his back on the creature in such tight quarters. But the dog ignored him, coming back and back again to a single piece of broken iron railing that seemed to hold its attention. At last, white teeth closed gingerly around the rusted handspan, and the animal came close, opening its jaws to let the object clatter and roll. It came to a halt just within reach. The animal stared. This for me? The animal tilted its head. Am I supposed to take this? It made a noise, somewhere between a bark and a low hoot. The acrobat bent down and reached out. The iron shard was heavy, heavier than it had a right to be, and very cold. He slid it into his satchel next to the copper coil. The dog gave a satisfied huff. Then the man reached out slowly again, offering the smell of his fingers to the creature's nose. Black nostrils flared. Good, Speedy, said the acrobat. Good boy. But when he took a half step forward, the dog was gone. He straightened with a familiar ache in the small of his back, looking around stupidly. But there were no answers in the empty room, the distant trees. So he sniffed and shouldered the satchel and glanced up the winding stair. The sound of weeping echoed unabated. Nothing for it, he told himself. Nothing for it now. Then he put one soft foot upon the bottom step and quietly began to climb. At the head of the stairs, he held very still, sweeping the darkness with his pouchy eyes. It was a wide chamber which must have once been an apartment. The warped and ruined floors were hardwood, and beyond them a terrace swelled wide into the hollow sky. Once there had been double doors and windows. Now there was only a wooden frame, with the red moon watching at its corner. No soul moved or breathed within this empty space, but the air pounded with the sound of tears. Is someone there? The acrobat whispered. Instantly, a silence rolled in, as thick as fog. Hello? He had no answer, but suddenly felt himself drawn toward the balcony. He planted his feet, but after a moment allowed an open mind to overrule his instincts and let that gentle pressure pull him toward the balustrade. The wind outside was cool and fresh. The gentle pressure wanted him to climb the railing out into the spiraling air, but now he resisted, just as gently, planting his feet, his heavy hands against the stone banister. Down below, the chasm yawned. A woman's body lay snarled among the rocks at its edge, her blank eyes staring up. He flinched. The dead eyes pleaded. One hand was stretched with palm up, as if beckoning. He closed his own eyes tight. When he opened them, the body was gone, the rocks reddened only by moonlight. Years of snow and rain had washed them clean. He pushed calmly at the banister and half-turned, keeping one hand in place, in case the urge to go over should come upon him fiercely. I know something about what it is to fall. He couldn't even say the word without reliving the rush, confusion, and sudden impact. His body remembered. The word made his shoulder ache, his ribs, his lower spine, and base of skull. He knew what it was like to be killed by a fall. Each great fall of his life had killed a part of him. Was it quick, at least? What happened to you? Still, no answer came from the dark apartment. Then, all at once, something gathered like a storm cloud and boiled out toward him. He almost went backwards. But when that cloud hit the slanting rays of moonlight, it condensed into a woman's figure, tall and straight, the same he'd seen splayed on the rocks below. It was clear from how she bore herself that she had status. Her face was a tragic mask of soft white stone. But even though she wasn't the sort of person to mingle with poor tumblers, he felt an unexpected ease as she came to look over the balustrade beside him. They had something intimate in common after all. It wasn't quick, she told him, her worrying at the stone. I lay there for a long time. It was summer. The flies were all over, but I couldn't move my hands to keep them off. Then after that, the birds came. They looked down at her body together. Mine was something like that, he told her. They thought I was dead, and nobody knew what to do, so they just left me where I fell. Then, when the men came to collect me, I was still breathing, still awake. They thought I would die, that it would be kinder if I died. And so they left me again, so that nature could take its course. I was all alone. I couldn't move. Finally, I was strong enough to start screaming for water. Only that's when anyone came back. But they did come back for you, she said bitterly. He crouched, resting his big forearms on the stone, his chin on the bristly backs of his hands. It was a way to make himself smaller, safer, put her much at ease as he could. The crouch stretched out his cramped calves. I'm sorry no one came for you. She folded her arms against the night chill. Were you pushed? He pushed me. She gestured toward the top of the tower. I'm sorry. After a moment, he asked, Who were you to each other? She couldn't even remember. It's like I was born on the way down, and whoever I was, whoever she was before, died the moment he pushed her. It's all so vague, she told him. It gets more vague every year. He sat with her a while as the moon rolled by. Then he said, "It's not my place to say this, but I don't think you should cry anymore." She looked at him, outraged, her fingers sharpening on the stone. "Excuse me?" He glanced up. The mask of her face had become less lovely, but he kept his voice steady. "The worst thing that could happen has happened already. Doesn't that mean you're free? You could leave here, go anywhere you wanted, become something new. What's there left to be afraid of?" She stared at him. Her fingers softened. For a moment she looked confused and very young. Then she looked out at the horizon with an exhalation almost like a laugh. "There's a thought." "You're thinking it? Why not go? Why not right now? What's keeping you?" She considered, looking down, her body no longer among the rocks. "There is one thing," she said at length. "Something of hers, of mine from before. A music box, the kind that fits in the palm of your hand. It plays a song from when I was small." "And you can't leave without this?" "I don't know. It feels as though I can't. Don't want to, can't. I'm not sure. I only know what I feel. I think it was mine, as a girl." "Where's this treasure now?" "He keeps it up in his vault. Sometimes I hear the music from above and wonder why he still listens to it. I think he remembers even less than me." The acrobat pushed slowly from the balustrade to his feet. "I don't think it matters why," he told her. "I think he's given up the right. Let's go get it for you, eh?" She looked at him strangely. "You would really help me with this?" "Ma'am," he said, "I would." "Why? Why risk yourself?" "Well, I'm risked already is the way I see it. They're paying me to be here, and I've took the job against my better judgment. No turning back home now. Might as well do someone a bit of good while I'm at it." She shook her head and laughed. "Well," she spread one arm. "Lead on." He nodded once and turned to saunter back toward the stairwell. His short legs and heavy shoulders gave him an almost ape-like walk. But the woman in the life before had often seen such acrobats twirl through the air, and she knew he must once have flown beautifully. She tilted her head and drifted after. "Not this one," she murmured behind him at the next flight, next landing, and the landing after that. The stones they climbed past were quarried from the mine below. Once they'd been scabbed with red crystal, but now were sanded smooth, leaving only a fine red dust in the spaces in between. Not this one either. A library where rotted books gave shreds of paper like autumn leaves. Keep going. A surgery of brown-stained porcelain, septic with the filth of nesting birds. Not here, she whispered. Further up. Away from the moonlight, she was boiling darkness once again. Dark as the great black dog which waited for them at each landing. When the tower narrowed with its great height, she thrust out an arm to block his way, and he walked through it before stopping, like stepping into warm smoke. These steps are trapped. They'll fall away beneath you, acrobat. And so he pressed his arms against either side of the narrow walls, and walked by shifting his weight and sliding his rough palms inch by inch until he gained the next landing. It was very painful for his ruined back and shoulder, but he knew the pain by now. Lady and Hound were both waiting in the moonlight at the stage this time. That was quite impressive, she told him. Wordlessly, he bowed with an outrageous flourish, It was the same bow he'd so often given in his day, and she laughed in earnest at the gallantry. "Is this the door, then?" The landing was only a small stone platform, its tumbled walls half open to the night. Facing the stars from the wall across this stage was a bare door of dull metal, humming through its red veins in the gloom. Bones, they were all split and blackened, and some of them half crumbled, were strewn before it. "This is the door." The lady's smile had faded. He crouched, tilting his head to study the bones. He thought most of them were human. "How does it work?" By way of answer, she drifted over to a piece of old scapula and lifted it between two fingers, as if its touch could still soil her. She tossed it at the door, and when it touched the metal, it stuck in place, as if held by a strong magnet or impaled on a long, invisible pin. The smell of ozone boiled up. The hum of the door deepened till you could feel it in your molars. Then there was a loud crack, and the bone exploded, black fissured edges smoking as they struck the stones around him. His magic is all destruction and death. He was curious about something. He pulled a worn copper coin from the purse at his hip and tossed it at the door. Its edge held fast to the dull metal, and after a moment the coin began to glow a drab red and then bright orange. They watched in silence as it glowed, brighter, brighter, finally surrendering form to spill away and pool on the floor. He sat on his heels with his chin on his fist, watching the copper fade and congeal. "What are you thinking?" she asked him. "I'm not sure yet." He unspooled a short length of wire from his pack and used the heavy piece of iron rail to crimp it off. Then he wrapped one end around a piece of bone, leaving the other straight. "Careful," she told him as he approached the door. He came close as he dared to the dull metal, and then gently tossed the ungainly thing he'd made. The copper tail touched first, and held, standing straight out from the door so that the weight of the wire-wrapped bone began to sag. Then came that hum, that smell of ozone welling up. The copper wire turned to black, and then a throbbing red. The bone cracked, then rifted. Smoke poured forth, and the bone burned until its cage of copper melted. "I'm not sure I understand," the lady said. "Just another bad idea," said the acrobat. He unspooled the bale of wire from its bag, doubling it, tying one end to a broken pillar by the window, and wrapping the other round that heavy chunk of iron which the dog had brought him. Then he arranged the wire in a wide loop on the floor. Its dull patina blended perfectly with the soot and reddish dust and guano on the stones. "Whatever you're planning," she told him, "isn't going to work." "Please don't tell me that." He straightened up. His back hurt. He looked to the darkened stairwell leading up. "You should turn around now," she told him. "He's going to kill you. I'm grateful that you tried to help." But he gave her a tired look, not quite a smile. "I think I'm ready for that," he told her. "Wouldn't have come if I wasn't desperate. And I'm not a young man after all." Then he vanished under the arch of the upward stair, and she shrank away, fading back into the downward spiral. At the broken summit of the tower, the moonlight streaked down red, and the tower's master sat staring up, muttering under his breath while he slowly consumed handful after handful of chalky red dust from a bowl of dull metal in his lap. He was dressed in cloth of gold. He might have been a wealthy burgher from his clothes, if they hadn't worn so thin on his pale body, if they hadn't begun to bleach and mold from the cycles of frost and rain. His feet were bare, but he seemed unbothered by the cold. He might have been handsome, if not for the strange, tight, cold sculptedness of his face and limbs, the facsimile of youth. All below, the pine woods spread in reddish-black. He knew without looking when the acrobat appeared behind him at the stairwell's head.
My name is Megalothanax.
He never took his eyes from the moon.
There is no need for you to tell me yours, because it doesn't matter. No doubt you are here because you know I can only be killed on the night of a red moon. That doesn't matter either. You cannot succeed. Where lesser men keep their lives inside their bodies, I have hidden mine inside a thing. Others, less wise, of course, have hidden theirs before, in crowns and gems and dragon's eggs, likely places. Their egos destroyed them, but my wisdom ranges far. I have hid my life in a thing so mundane it can never be found. Any stone of this tower could be its hiding place. Any book or pen or shard of broken furniture. If the red moon shone 1,000 nights, you would not find it.
He half turned, offering the bowl.
Would you partake?
He took a handful of red powder. It ran between his pale fingers.
It is powdered lead. It brings fever and quickness of thought. Mortal sages partake from time to time, but they cannot partake the way I can. The weakness of their bodies is their limitation. They cannot see the world as I.
He raised the handful of powder to his dry lips and let it pour down his tongue.
Will you partake?
He asked again, exhaling a red cloud.
Will you understand just a little what you have come here to destroy before you are destroyed by it?
Saying nothing, the acrobat turned and climbed back down the stairs.
Ha 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 ha!
The master of the tower climbed to his feet and followed unhurriedly.
You have had second thoughts. This is wise, but it is too late. Let me tell you something, little flea. I'm going to destroy the moon. Does that not inspire you? And it is wise, for what can kill me on the red moon's night if there is no moon to redden? Yes, I decided long ago that this would be my task. This would fill the lengthy hours of my endless life. I would use the power of my genius thoughts to destroy the moon. I am very close now. Any night and I shall stumble on the method. But you, a little jumping flea, how shall a flea survive when the moon cannot?
They'd arrived back down at the landing, and the acrobat was backing away against a pillar by the window. The master of the tower stepped down into the room, speaking like a reasonable man, not caring that his bare feet walked through splinters of bone and excrement of birds.
The fragments of the moon will rain and cover up the earth in blood, he was saying. But after that I shall create a new moon, and this one I think shall be made of gold, solid gold, always yellow in the night sky, and so much brighter than the moon we know. Does that not inspire you? The people of the world will love me then, for who but Megalothanax could take away the night, and when?
As the tower's master stepped into the middle of the room, the middle of that copper loop, the acrobat crouched, and rising, with a chunk of iron in his hand, he hurled it. The man in gold ducked smoothly, smiling, not breaking his stream of thought. But as the iron soared past, it cinched the loop of copper wire tight around him. For just a moment, he was confused. He began to ask something like,
"But what is the meaning of this?"
And then the chunk of iron railing struck the door.
"Oh, I understand,"
said Megalothanax. Then came the sudden hum, harsher than ever before, and grating up the octaves as the room filled up with ozone and the fumes of burning flesh, and the crackling up of pale skin and cloth beneath the wires burning red. The whole room filled with daylight as the copper glowed. And then, quite calmly, Megalothanax brushed his hands across the incandescent wires, breaking them. They lashed sizzling round his feet, and he glanced down in dismay at the livid new burns that carved his flesh.
"Very clever," he admitted. "I almost wish it had worked."
The acrobat gave a dry, despairing laugh and sank with his back against the pillar. Molten copper oozed along the floor. A chunk of iron, still bonded to the droning door, glowed white.
"Could I have judged too soon?"
said Megalothanax.
"Maybe you are more than just a flea."
He reached into his pockets and drew forth the bright red powder.
"Partake, for you are worthy. You and I could speak together. I have longed for an equal. No, a friend."
He stepped forward.
"Taste of the great stimulant. Unshackle your mind and race with me in thought. Forget the lesser things you've been, and—"
But his one hand took the acrobat by his shoulder, and the other raised red dust toward his lips. The glowing iron cracked, and Megalothanax staggered, surprised, like a man who's felt something vital burst inside him.
"Oh, that—"
But when he opened his mouth, molten iron began to pour out of him, out of his mouth and eyes and nose and ears, and down the front and back of his thighs. It flowed from his navel and underneath the fingernails, as that piece of iron rail gave up its form. And as it dripped and ran, so too did Megalothanax, crumpling forward into the dirt and bird droppings like a wax figure melted in a flame. Then the door broke, and the hum gave way, and the room fell silent, red with moonlight and the glow of cooling iron. The acrobat stepped forward, nudging blackened slag with his boot. "How did you know," said the lady, suddenly beside him, "that his soul was in that piece of iron?" The acrobat looked up at her. "Ma'am," he said, "I had absolutely no idea." The red veins of the door had burnt out black. It hummed no longer, and when he tossed a coin, it bounced away, and when he set a small pry bar to its crack, there was no current or smell of ozone, and the old lock broke. Inside, they found a wealth of gold and rare books and strange artifacts and creatures sealed in glass. Atop a small plinth of red lead crystal sat a music box, and when he had loaded all the money he could carry into his purse and shoulder bag, they took the music box together and flung it down from her apartment to shatter in the rocks below. Its last note sang out sadly in the night, a single chime of childhood, and for a moment he understood why Megalothanax had wanted to keep it. "Do you feel any different now?" he asked. She took a moment to answer, looking up as the moon set slow. "Yes," she said at last. "I feel as if I could never fall again." Then she stepped up onto the balustrade and out into the night. This time, instead of falling, she rose and rose into the sky, turning rosy with the rosy moonlight, until she was one with it. The acrobat smiled after, though his face was sad. Then he climbed down the stairs and went out into the night himself. As he passed beneath the tall black trees, he found the dog beside him, and this time, when he reached out, the beast allowed his thick arthritic fingers to ruffle without complaint through the hair behind his ear, below the heavy muscle of his jaws. The moon lit their path red between the long black pines, and the night was fair and cool and smelled of freshly fallen needles. His bones still ached, his back still hurt, but he decided that he would not change it. "Come on then, Speedy," said the acrobat. "Let's go and find a bite to eat." The Wrong Station is made possible with the generous support of our listeners on Patreon. Visit today at patreon.com/thewrongstation. You can also support us by leaving a rating and review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever it is you tune into the show. This week's episode, Red Moon Tower, was written by Alexander Saxton with Alex Lavasidis and performed by Anthony Botello. Thank you to Christina, Matt Clegg, Christian Hall, Caden Thompson, Alex Valentine, Barb Slansky, Sophie Rose, Camille, and Elda Howard for helping us keep the lights, well, off. The Wrong Station is co-produced by Alexander Saxton, Anthony Botello, and Jacob Duarte Spiel, with music composed and performed by Alon Citron and arranged for the viola and performed by Viola Schmidt. You can follow The Wrong Station on social media at The Wrong Station and email us at thewrongstation@gmail.com. And until next time, thank you for listening.